Thank you very much. I'd like to call the meeting to order and acknowledge that we are in Treaty 1 territory, the home and traditional lands of the Anishinaabe, Ojibwe, Inuit, Cree, and Dakota peoples, and in the national homeland of the Red River Métis. Our drinking water comes from Shoal Lake 40 First Nation in Treaty 3 territory. My name is Brett McIntyre, and I'll be chairing the panel today. To my right is Carrie Linklater and Richard Whitbread. The assessor today is Jeremy Pohl, and our recording secretary is Belhan Rovo. To the Zoom participants of the hearing, please note you are placed in the waiting room until your property is called upon. When it is your turn, you'll be admitted into the meeting. Kindly follow along on the City of Winnipeg's Boardroom YouTube channel for the hearing process. Once the host admits you into the hearing, please close or mute your YouTube player. You will then be permitted to speak with respect to your property. Once your hearing has concluded, you can leave the meeting. We will be hearing applications for revision of the assessment roll in accordance with the Municipal Assessment Act. The matters for which revision is requested have been described in each application, and we will limit discussion to those matters. The statements that are made at this hearing are sworn testimony, and anyone speaking to the matters must be sworn in. Be advised that comparisons of assessments of properties are not considered evidence of market value by the Board of Revision. The Board of Revision is appointed annually by Council and is independent of it and the City Administration. It makes its decisions on the basis of the evidence provided at this hearing and issues a written order that will be mailed to all parties as soon as possible. Please note that the Board's decisions with respect to an application may be appealed to the Manitoba Municipal Board if the matter pertains to assessed value or classification, or to the Court of King's Bench if the matter pertains to the application of exemptions from taxation. Should you wish to appeal, information on how to do so will be included with the Board's order. With respect to the hearing process, I will confirm the points of appeal with your property to be addressed with each applicant following the swearing in. We will then have the assessor's testimony followed by questions that the applicant may have, and then the applicant's testimony followed by questions. Each side will have an opportunity to summarize if they wish. Once all of the evidence about an application has been brought forward, the applicant may leave. The process will repeat for each item on the docket today. The session will close after all the applications have been heard, and the Board will deliberate in private and make its decisions. You will receive the Board's decision by registered mail as soon as possible. As information, all public hearings are live streamed, recorded, and will be part of the public record. We will be hearing items 1 through 7 on our docket today. Because we have an applicant in attendance in the boardroom, we're going to start with items 6 and then 7, and then go back to the top of the docket. Ms. Rojo, please affirm the assessors and the applicant's testimony. Thank you.
Mr. Assessor, please state your full name.
Trevor Ryan Pohl.
And you affirm the evidence you're about to present is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
Yes, I do.
Thank you. Leslie, please state your full name.
Thomas Leslie.
And you affirm the evidence you're about to present is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Thank you.
Thank you. And the first property today is 480 Portage Avenue. And are there any preliminary issues with this property? Mr. Leslie? No? Okay, Jeremy, you can proceed.
Our roll number is 120911220000 480 Portage Avenue. We have approximately leasable area of 8,000 square feet. It was built in 1967. It is a one-story building. We have some basement area as well for 4,200 square feet. Please look at page number 2. We have a sale of the property May 18 for $895,000. I investigated the sale as well as permits. Please turn to page starting on page 7. It's located just off Memorial on Portage. You turn to page 8. You see what it currently is. It is a cafe and it is a restaurant pub. You see that prior to the sale, it was a University of Winnipeg occupied building. So it was not a restaurant or cafe of any kind. You look on page 10, you see that there are permits. The main permit being the one highlighted underneath, where it was approximately $300,000 to convert some of the building from offices, which we have it in totality here today, over to obviously restaurants. If we look on the INEs on page 11, 2020 INE indicates that there's a rent income There's 20% vacant, total leasable area 3742 or 46, which is significantly less than what we have. Look on page 12 is the rent roll for Opa and the cafe, and then the remaining area is vacant. You see it's 750 square feet of vacant leasable area. Not sure, we have quite a bit more area than that. The building area is correctly for as far as the gross leasable area as it was prior to the renovation. On page 15, you see the 2019 INE. Note on the annual rent received, there's a percentage rent. Percentage rent is obviously associated with restaurant. We don't have percentage rents for occupied office space. That's not the use of an office. So it does appear that this building was converted to, I'm sorry, on page 16 is the remainder of the ID, where it had another hospitality in there as well. Again, the areas don't associate back to what we have, but they're indicating net rents. The net rents are $20.15 and $13.45 for the two tenants that were in there. Obviously, Open is now in there. But what it indicates is that the building was bought for the sale price of approximately $900,000. $300,000 was put in for capital cost to change use, some of it over to restaurant. And this was part of discovery is when I went to the property. We only have it as office. So I'll go through the income stream as we have it now for anyone to see what we need it as. You see that we have approximately 8,000 square feet of leasable area for $12.20 or $12.48, which produces a potential rent of $900,000 approximately. If you look at the rents that are in place, if the CRU and this is part of the question to the appellant. If it's about $1,000 or so up front for the restaurant, the rest of it is still office in the back. The $12 is reasonable. But for restaurants of about 1,000 CRU size, non-standard chain restaurants like non-national chain, you're looking between $16 and $22 a square foot. So when we see the 1,000 square feet or so put in at $14, that's pretty conservative. But again, that's based on what we had under record. So with that, it's your standard parameters applied. Vacancy of 12%, produces effective gross income of approximately 88,000. Expenses at non-recoverable at 3%. Shortfall at $10, produces a net operating income of approximately 75,640, capped at 6.9%, gives us the 1,096,000 approximately. So with that, it's a pretty basic workup. It does appear that it is changed over use. Part of it anyways, I'm not sure the rest of it. But with that, I am open to questions. And again, I think part of this visit bill anyways will be a discovery as far as what the rest of the building is.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Leslie, any questions?
Yes, Mr. Chairman, thank you. Mr. Cole, on page 1, and you've indicated the effective year of this property, 1967.
Yep.
So that would make this property about 60 years. What's that? 60 years old?
Yeah, give or take.
You've got leasable area of 8,000 square feet. But that would include the basement area, correct?
The gross floor area is about 8,458 square feet with a leasable area of 8,000 square feet. Again, we had 2 series before as far as office, and then there is a basement area as well at 4,229. If you look on my workup, we don't have any basement area, including the leasable area. There's no basement leasable area. So we're just dealing with the 8,000 square feet on the main level. So that's great.
So did you inspect the property?
No, I did not.
And on page 3, at the top, you've got, I'm assuming OFC is office, standard quality, 3-story. But this is not a 3-story.
It's a 1-story. A Class C building can be a 1-story or above.
So this is a 1-story with a basement.
Yep.
Your workup on page 3. It was based on the 8,000 square feet of main floor space.
Yes.
And I think you in the circular, you referred to the circular that the taxpayer provided, and they're showing on page 11 that the total leasable area is 37. Is that 3746 or
That's what I read it as.
like less than half?
Yes. And if you look on page 15, they're also declaring the same.
And page 12, again, that they're showing the tenants, including the vacancy, and that space again is somewhat similar to what they're showing as the total area. So it would appear there's a significant difference in the area of this property.
Yes. I went through what we had on record. It was always office. I went through the gross area, the building with aerial tool, it matches about 8,500 square feet. I went through what we had on our field forms. Our information is correct up until what appears to be renovation of the property, which changed its use, at least part of, to restaurant.
Right.
I don't have any other indication for the rest of the building. I don't know if they're reporting only what they have currently leased and the rest of it, they just don't report it. I don't see how it was occupied at one point, the way it was, and after the renovation and sale, the leasable area drops by less than half.
The vacancy on page 3 that you're showing of 12%, that's the model. The expenses of
It's all modeled.
that's all model driven.
I didn't make any adjustments to any of the standard parameters that the model predicted.
And the cap rate of 6.9% is model, and I believe you've included the city's standard cap rate chart.
Mhm.
So it would fall under, is it
As an office, it would fall.
downtown office?
Right, but as an office, we don't have a chart for the C and Bs, as most of the investment grade property are tracked. The Cs and Ds are less than time in this period in such a manner. But also it's a matter of, is it all office or is it still, which clearly is not. There'd be restaurant involved in it now. It's just a matter of how much restaurant is there versus the 8,000 square feet of leasable area. And that might be what they're reporting at the 37 or so hundred square feet is now a restaurant. They're just not reporting the office space. So. You can see from the picture on.
So the cap rates you would use would be retail? No.
Well, you would have two different income streams. You'd have
Right, for the
office and one for the restaurant. What I'm saying is the office income stream is the more conservative one. Even if I put the retail parameters on or restaurant parameters on, that would come with a rental rate between, the $16 to $22 range and around there for a for something that's more of a not a national chain, right? You're gonna put a Hortons, McDonald's, those kind of things, you're gonna be in the $30 or $28, $30, $33 mark for what an open is, and cafe, I remember, can't really read the ID, whatever the cafe looks like they're operating as the same, the shared space. So as a non-national franchise, you have a significantly higher rent for the space. So the parameters that you would apply for the restaurant would be greater than what we have today. So I think it's conservative. What we see here is just a matter of trying to confirm through the process of appeal what's actually looked at areas and what was converted over. Is there still any office space left? Is it just shelled and waiting for it's being used for other purposes? I'm not sure. It seems like there was a change of use of the buildings.
But you didn't inspect it, so you don't know.
No, I was hoping that through the agency of yourself and the owner would be able to.
Well, we did discuss that though.
Yeah.
About inspecting it, but
I
know and I appreciate it with everything that's going on these days. Yeah. Okay. Those are all my questions.
Thank you. And Carrie, do you have any questions?
Yes, Mr. Cole, page 2 of your brief,
yes.
there's a sale indicated.
Yep.
So to the best of your knowledge, is that an arm's length?
Yes, it appears to be an arm's length. I reviewed it. You can see my name is actually Jake Bolton, the verifier. And then after the fact, which I didn't review, would have been the permit to change use. So that occurred after. So there's the purchase price of $895,000, give or take, and then the $300,000 for sole permit to change. Obviously, the part of the use of the building from office to restaurant. It looks like it's at the front portion, but I don't know. Half the building now, 1,000 square feet of the leasable area. The rest of the building shelled and it's no longer going to be office and it's going to be used for something else. These are questions I had. I don't know.
Okay. In regards to your cap rate of 6.9, that is modeled.
Yes.
Okay. So you don't look, for instance, that, you know, a $300,000 permit was taken out. So there was obviously some renovations done. So you didn't adjust the cap rate because it's
No,
a
no.
1967.
That would be a capital cost to switch over to another use.
Okay.
I don't think the property would have been in the state where a university of tenant would be at a occupiable area or simply change use. So you have some removal of what the capital would have been to change use to its current state. That's not necessarily something that would have come to you adjust for net operating purpose and then cap that. So this is a capital cost that was used to change use of these part of the building.
Also, just wondering, did the city have a standard amount or percentage or what have you in regards to restaurants having vacancy issues during COVID? And I do see you have a vacancy of 12, but is there any chart that you're going by, or is it up to each individual assessment?
From my standpoint, I do manage the office inventory. Occasionally there's a restaurant in it and you have a separate income stream. Usually it's so small, it's, I won't say relevant to the larger investment potential of the office building. But as far as vacancy for COVID related issues for restaurants this time, I can tell you the work that we've planned. So
Thank you, Mr. Chair. That's all my questions.
Thank you, Richard.
And following that, it's clear that you classify this as an office, so you wouldn't be concerned about vacancy during COVID as a restaurant or a cafe. Is that true?
it is less of an impact on that. For investment grade leases, you don't have when they use a 6-month lease or whatever lease for that. Typically they're longer term leases. And that's what you capitalize. That's your investment grade leases. So we would speak to that. But as far as tenancies, as far as restaurants, you're going to have your smaller operators who simply couldn't make it through. So there would be a natural element to that. I couldn't give you the exact because I didn't have the analysis.
I understand. Thank you. Just a general question. Have you visited any of the premises on this docket today?
I visited 630 Coordinate because there was another major issue with that property. As far as this one here, I didn't really necessarily, obviously our workload is what it is, but I didn't really see the need. I thought that Pelham would be able to convey that information.
Okay.
Given the use in the picture, you can see two restaurants in the front of the building, so.
It saves us asking you every time we are there. They don't know it. Last question. Will this premise stay or property stay as office until the applicant asks for reclassification? For example, be through the next cycle.
No, like now that it's picked up, I'm gonna review it, and if it should be to constraints, should be. A part of it was discovery, like I mentioned today. It's still office, up to 2/3 of it is office, we'll keep it as such. But in this case here, I'm not sure why it wasn't picked up as far as the permit. Maybe it's so recent that we never got a chance to with COVID. So I'm mainly just trying to get a reasonable assessment for what it is. We see the sale price at 900,000. We see that it's 300,000 capital investment to the property to change part of it over. And then when you look at the construction office, if it is 1,000 or so square feet for the restaurant, as you see the two restaurants shared space, that would generate more per square foot than what we have here today.
So maybe a supplementary question then. Have you had a chance to review this document before this meeting? Was there any consideration on your part for adjustment to the model, either in the cap rate or in the operating income, based on your knowledge of?
No, because I wasn't sure exactly what was going to be as far as the restaurant. Like I know that I'd be switching this over to what they said at about 37 or so 100 square feet of restaurant. That income would drive up higher. Even if you put a higher vacancy rate, it's going to be a higher income. It's going to be a higher assessed value. So I think it's best to go through the discovery process here today, wait for the order, and then we can review to see if there'll be a supplemental assessment or we just leave it for next reassessment cycle, which is what I'm kind of really.
I understand. No further questions. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. I'm looking at the permit for the $300,000 alteration. And it was taken out in 2019. Based on the wording on the permit, it looks like this restaurant only occupies a portion of the main floor.
Yeah.
So we're not sure how much it occupies.
Other than what I see on the INEs, it looks like there was 2 CRUs that we had at 1,000 and the other, but it looks like there's about 3,700 square feet. That is a restaurant now.
And then the rest is,
Whatever,
we're not sure.
it could have been the 300,000, stripped the rest of it out and it's sitting shelf waiting for a tenant to whatever use, could be retail, it could be office, could be another restaurant. I don't know.
Okay, that was my only question. Thank you. Mr. Leslie. You can start with your presentation.
Yes, Mr. Chairman, I believe you have my submission. To respond to one of the panel's questions. Page 10 is a copy of the offer to purchase for the subject property. The purchaser is the operator of Open. Which also drove that building permit. So what we have is an 8,000 square foot property that was occupied at the University of Winnipeg, purchased by the taxpayer. He then converted, according to the income an expense questionnaire on page 7, 1,985 square feet into open souvlaki. That was the money spent on the building permit in to open in 19. And then as noted on the page 7 of the income expense questionnaire, he ceased operations due to COVID. There is also, as part of that building permit, the Capizzi International, and then there's also a vacancy. The 1,011 square feet and 750 square feet. As far as I know, the rest of the space is unimproved. Space that's occupied for purposes of retail restaurants is, as at the reference date, is more than a third vacant. And the rest of the space is totally vacant. On page 2 of my brief, I tried to do a workup based on the improved space, using a vacancy factor as noted to come up with some net income and values. And on for 2019, when it was last fully occupied, or occupied to the extent that it can be occupied, as per the income and expense questionnaire, I used a 6.5% cap rate to get to the purchase price. And so I think the real issue here is what is the area we're dealing with. And we've got a real change in use in order to properly value this property. And so the only thing that I can look to is an arm's length sale in 2018, because the numbers don't support a value that's higher than that. My cap rate at 6.5% is less than the assessor's cap rate. And so I submit, the best evidence is a bona fide arm's length sale on or before the reference date. Cost of improvements is really not relevant to the space because we're not assessing costs, we're assessing value. That's what the taxpayer paid for it. That they also operate OPA, and they closed it because of COVID. Will it reopen? I don't know. But that revenue from OPA is included in my workup on page 2 for the 2019 year. And so for those tenants paying rent and using a 5% vacancy factor, 6.5% cap rate, I get the purchase price. That's my evidence.
Thank you very much. Jeremy, any questions?
Very quick questions on page 10 of my brief, although it's not in yours, but we alluded to it. The permit, it indicates joint occupancy of both and the cafe. Are they all owner occupied, or does he have a tenant, or does the owner have a tenant? Because
I believe the tenant that's currently occupying is that Capizzi coffee shop.
right, and if you look at the photos, there is only one CRU with one entrance. There's not two entrances.
No.
So how would that in relationship be to the actual rent that you see? Like, what I'm looking at is, does the owner, can you confirm, does the owner own both businesses?
No.
Okay, so in order for the other business to be open, OPA has to be jointly open because there's only one.
Right, the door is open, but there's nothing there.
Okay, because that would be a little bit atypical. If you look at,
It's almost like a food fair down in the bottom of Winnipeg Square.
so if you look on page 15 of my brief, although it's not in yours, they're paying percentage rent of 23,729. That would be the one tenant. That would be typical of a restaurant, paying a little less per square foot, as the business do as well. you give a bit of your profits to them. If you don't want to pay a percentage rent, you typically get a higher elevated rent to account for it, balances out a bit. So have you accounted for the percentage rent in your workup? The restaurant?
Well, they didn't achieve those results, so.
Yeah, they achieved it in 2019, which would be unaffected by COVID.
I believe I used their actual revenues.
But in 2019, that would be unaccounted for as far as COVID related, because it wouldn't have an effect yet. 2020 obviously did. But you don't have that in your equation.
You know what? I don't recall.
And then what you're showing us as far as revenue is based on half owner occupier and then half tenant, and then a number of their a potential area that's not put any rent to, correct?
Right.
And you're going solely on the sale, and there's no market evidence that you're presenting as far as any rents. No, okay, thank you. That's all the questions.
Thank you. Terry,
I have no questions, thank you.
Richard.
A little bit of confusion here. I heard you say the restaurant or cafe has been closed and is totally empty. Is that true?
The OPA,
The OPA part?
the OPA part.
And then I hear someone say the coffee shop is open. Is that
Not related,
not related?
No.
Not on this property,
but in that property, but they're not related to the owner.
but they rent from the owner.
Right.
Right. Okay, that clarifies for me. Thank you.
That's, yeah, on page 7.
Sorry, can I just have a quick follow-up question to them? But there's one demising entrance, one door in out.
Right,
So the whole place is shut down and dark, and the cafe side of it is open.
yes.
Explain like a mall. You could have 5 vacancies.
So best example I give it is the Wendy's and Tim's. They're all
Yeah,
center occupied,
there you
but
go.
there's 2 businesses
Okay,
right in the same area.
no more questions.
I don't have a question, just a comment concerning these renovations took place in 2019. Has anybody from the department visited it for business tax?
It was the. As far as the business tax, I didn't investigate, but when I looked at it, it looked like they were, Opal was being in there. But as far as the change of realty side of it, I don't think anyone went there for that purpose. They may not have actually went to the building, they just did it over the phone.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Okay, so that was it. So that concludes 480 Portage. The next property is 280 Smith Street. Any preliminary issues on this one, gentlemen?
Nope.
No,
Nope. Okay, just let me get there. Okay, Jeremy, you can proceed.
Shereen Smith, roll number is 12093317 assessed value is 2,202,000. This is a building, an office building built in 1950. It has approximately leasable area of 25,960 square feet, a gross area of 39,000. So there is a higher, there's a higher leasable, I should say a lower leasable ratio. If you look on page, starting on page 7, the property, I'm just walking through. It's on Smith Street, the corner of Portage. Well, 4 properties down, so mid block. It is a. Sorry. It's a 5-story D rated building. Leasing activity in the building starting on page 9. We see the leases that were being sought for. They're $12.50 net. You can see the contiguous spaces of about 1,784 square feet to a little under 5,000 square feet. Underneath on page 9, highlighted blue, we see what's been advertised, and on page 10 again, all $12.50 to get into the building. There's another lease, part of the lease on page 11, and that's approaching the reference date. You see on page 12 that the actual I&E. When I went to the I&E, they check off. If you look, it's partially owner occupied. Up at the top on page 12, underneath annual income received. Look on page 13, you see that HD AdWorks is the owner occupier on the main. If you look at the rest of it, they are tenants, and then check off as net. When I did the actual calculations, below are the tenancies and the actual nets, 1650, 1610, 1725. There is no way that's net. I'm not sure they checked that or if they interpreted it as a different way, but this building would not net out at that rate. So when I look back to the property, we'll go to the income stream. On page 3, we see that we have approximately almost 26,000 square feet, leased out at about $9.42 a square foot net, which is on the low end of the spectrum as far as office rent. $244,750 is the potential rent. We have a 15% vacancy put on building. That is a standard parameter. We have 8%. We have a 3% for non-recoverable expenses. We have shortfall of $8, and we have a capped, or sorry, NOI of we have a net operating income of $170,644 capped at 7.75 gives us our $2,201,000 rounded bit up to $2,202,000. So before we go any further than that, when you look at what they're asking, you see that there's some vacancy in the building. This is, I believe, it was a 2018 listing, and then it was re-released a number of times. Waiting at vacancy went from a lower amount of vacancy in the decade prior, and it's leasing up to the reference date with a higher amount of vacancy in the building, approaching 50%. I believe. On page 9 to 10, you see that they're asking for those tenants, for those CRUs for tenants at around $12.50 net. So when we look at the marketplace, page 14, comparables for 18 to 20, for the years 18 to 20, we see that the average is about 1488. We see that there is approximately 24 comparables used. They're all over these, they're all downtown. And we have our average of roughly 57. So the median's at also about 1370. So it is a pretty tight analysis. We see that they're asking a little bit more for these than what they're asking here. For the years leading up to it from 15 to 17. So we have a 6-year window looking up to it, pushing the reference date between 18 to 20. Analysis was it again, around similar. About $1.50 less for the weighted average at the 1270, an average at 1140, and median at 11. So we see a push of an increase. I've seen that right across the classes of buildings, whether it's an A or D, the rents are steadily increasing. That's reflective of the board that. When we get back to the subject property, we do have this as a lower grade B. It's assessed as a lower grade B, and the market rent that we put on is hammered down to the lower grade. It's below $10 rent. So I feel that this is appropriate. The only thing I wanted to confirm was the vacancy leading up to the reference date. We see that I have rebuttal information that I can get to, but realistically, we have a building that had low vacancy for a number of years, and we had tenants leaving. So we see that there's no functional or obsolescence within the building that prevents market placement being in it. Otherwise, it would continuously be vacant to a certain degree, which would then qualify for chronic vacancy. In this case here, we don't see that, but at this reference date, short while after the reference date, we see a higher degree of market vacancy. So all things being equal, I believe 15% is reasonable, but given the information that I reviewed from the appellant, I think an increase of about 3% to 18% vacancy would be reasonable with the rent that we put on it. So that's the increase that the reflection of what I feel market is to this building. And I have some rebuttal if we need to go through, and I can show that typically you don't look to a larger moment in time vacancy. I think that that's going to carry forward unless there is an actual obsolescence within the building. And given that there was a higher degree of occupancy in the building for a long significant amount of time, leading up, like I said, for the couple years leading up to the reference date, that kind of proves itself out. So All in all, so adjustments, I believe, to vacancy at about 18% with the residents on, I think it's reasonable. I'll let the board do that. If it's appropriate, so. That'll hold the questions.
Thank you. Mr. Leslie, any questions?
Yes, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Cole. So on your page one, you've indicated this is effective year 1956. In fact, I think you made the statement, this would be a lower class D.
Yes.
It's a 5-story building. With is there rent attached to the basement big space?
We don't have any basement leasable area in this building.
Okay. But there is rent attached, there is a mezzanine in this.
Yes.
That, have you seen a office building with a mezzanine built within the last?
No, it's an older building. There's no issue with that. Since it's clearly stated it's a B building, and there's it's an older class, lower grade B.
On page 7, you identified it's is the location of it, 280 Smith. So it's south of Portage Avenue, actually the lane behind the, I guess that's the Radisson Hotel.
Yeah, it's 1 block over from MTS, just behind the Radisson Hotel. There's a property in between. It's mid-block.
This would be a one-way street.
Yep.
But this is a main thoroughfare coming off the Midtown Bridge. That's what they still call it.
Not in my head, but sure.
Across the street was formerly the St. Regis Hotel.
It was at one point, yes.
You talked a lot about the listing and there on page 9, there's a circular from Avison Young asking for certain rents, $10 to $10 net, I think is highlighted.
1250. Which starting on
This
page
is
9.
page 9.
Page 9 is 1250, and on page 10 is a continuation of that, showing all the C areas that are offered at 1250. And then on page 11 is another independent realtor.ca website, which offered 1250 as well. So it's pretty much the same information, just conveyed to the brokerages, different brokers.
On page 14, I believe those are your notations. Is that correct?
Comparables?
No, A&O services, MCIs,
On page 13, yes.
Group.
Yes, on page 13, yes.
But those aren't net rents.
Yeah, I already indicated that.
Those are gross rents.
They check them off as net, which I indicated could not be in this building. They're simply too high for this building.
Right, so those are all gross rents. What would be the standard common area taxes, occupation costs in the Class D building?
As far as like a camp,
Common taxes,
camp
yes.
and tax, it varies. It could be anywhere from $3.50, $4.50 and around,
Could be as high as $8 a square foot.
depending.
And it was that reason,
Buildings
it was for that reason that on page 3, you used for the average net rent, you've used $9.42.
It's a lower grade B. It would receive lesser than. Part of that would be your other side of the equation, how much you're gonna pay for tax, how much you're gonna pay your costs. It's gonna eat into that net rent. The same way as if you building, not the building, but any building would go through a large renovation where they would have a more efficient building. Although they don't look at it as far as a capital investment improvement, you can look at it being consumers improve because your clients, your tenancies would pay less per square foot for expenses. So you'd be able to capture that more on a net basis. So in this case here, I don't see that as an overbuilding, a low grade B. I have it assessed as such under $10. We looked at leasing and mechanisms in place leading up to reference date at $12.50. And again, I looked at the actual what was reported, which stuck out like a sore thumb that can't be net, even though they checked that off. That's why I highlighted it. And then you see what the marketplace is for similar buildings for an older fees as well. You see a steady increase from demand and asking rates anyways. So these are all contractual leases that occurred within the marketplace.
Yeah, and Mr. Wallen, I appreciate that you've corrected the taxpayer on that, because if I take page 14, intergroup consulting, and it's not net rent, but I use the $17.25 and deduct what you use as what the market should be for this particular property, $9.42. I get common taxes of $7.83. So I'm just this is okay. So, but you've already confirmed this is a lower class D, and a lower class D would incur more expenses than a higher class.
And that's essentially why when I reviewed the property comparable, you see that the range that they're in, they're quite a bit more than what we see in assessed wise. You also see in relationship to the advertising for the space. Do I think they can get $12.50 overall for that building? Maybe. That's a big maybe. So if I went simply what the advertising market is, combined with what the analysis was, we'd look to increase this building. But realistically, I don't think this limit should be increased. I think it's a lower grade B, but we have it assessed as such. So the only adjustment that I could see with rationale from the municipal order, which I have in the bottle, I'm not going to get any further than that, is we shouldn't rely on a point in time that is higher than market. When you look at the long-term investment horizon, it's not going to be a 2 or 3 year investment horizon that you can have that type of vacancy affected. We see that it was primarily occupied for the whole building for a significant number of years. So there's no barrier market coming back in. It just experiencing a period of higher vacancy at the moment.
But
So
you did
being said, a 3% increase to the model of 15%, I think is reasonable at this point in time.
so you're not on your page 3. You're now suggesting that 15% should go to 18%.
Yes, I stated that. So
Now, on page 13, the income and expense questionnaire that you've included at the top, it says 2018.
page 3.
13. And it would have been received May of 2019. I think that's stamped on there.
Where are you looking as far as?
At the very top, it says Assessment and Taxation Department 2018
2019.
and received May 2019.
Yeah.
Okay, so we go to the next page,
Which is the comparables.
which is, no, the next page is the income and expense questionnaire, the rent roll, page 14.
Oh.
So you'll note that the tenant, Intergroup Consulting, the lease expired December 2018 and occupied floors 4 and 5.
Yeah.
And that represents 90.
13, almost 14,000 square feet.
No, I think that's the rent. The square footage is
Oh, sorry.
4634
So
on each floor.
No. That is 13,000. They have little brackets around.
Oh,
it. So
okay.
it's estimated. Yeah, it's about 14,000.
So, and you're not, are you aware that they left?
As indicated, they were renewed. I understand that from your brief that there is a higher degree of vacancy in the building. We've already commented on that.
Yeah. Okay.
I don't think it should qualify as chronic because it wouldn't be something you could expect to occur indefinitely. which is what 20%, 25% chronic vacancy is reported and it's reported, and that's the reason for it. There's obsolescence, something keeping the marketplace from coming in. You see that there was a high degree of occupancy for a number of years. So by definition, there's no barrier, which is the point in time where they're experiencing some vacancy. And with a lower rent put on the market and up to our model parameter at 15% vacancy, I think is pretty reasonable.
Have you done that calculation as to what, if you bump it to 15%, what your value would be?
I haven't done the calc. I didn't provide it here today. I was waiting part of the process with the hearing. So I have to review the information you present. I make the judgment call once we go through everything. So I don't want to be hard pass on any given appeal. Part of it is discovery and reviewing it in hearing. So
Those are all my questions.
Thank you. Carrie, any questions?
Just one question regarding your cap rate. So you have classified this as a building D. Correct?
Yeah.
Kept hearing B, C, so D. So,
no, it's definitely B, and it's on the lower spectrum of B.
right. So, right, because it has an effective age of 1956.
It's not so much the age, like a lot of these are older. That's the bracket for age group. It's just that nothing really been done to it. It's
Right. So, page 5 of your brief that has your cap rate. So there is no D,
No.
correct?
No.
So then this is just model driven?
model driven. They take in relationship with all things they come up with a value. When you see the investment grades, which are A and Bs, which are usually the ones that are tracked, they're the more investment grade for that. But there are other properties, Cs and Ds. Some Cs perform very, very well, but it's a downward scale typically. And then that's what I'm trying to get at here today. An A is graded an A because it generates more per square foot.
Right.
Same, and as you go down, that's generally one rule of thumb as you go down to Ds. In this case here, it is a D and it is at the lower end of D, so it's going to be generating a lot less per square foot than really anything else. So
then that did not, because this was a model driven figure, you didn't think to adjust it?
no, the condition we have on the building does reflect that. That's why you don't see a rent of around 1150, 1250 in this building. We have it as the $9
Right.
rent, so it already is adjusting the rent potential there. So it's reflected.
Okay.
The only thing that I found that was reviewed, like I said, of all the different municipal board orders and long-term studies on vacancy for different types of properties, including nearest by would be 275 Portage. If it's an elevated bump in vacancy, you wouldn't expect that to continue onwards. You'd expect it to be pushing back down to the market, but I think it would be a lower rent than market and a bit more absorption, which why is the bump from 50 to 80%.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. And Richard?
I have nothing, thanks.
And I have no questions. So Mr. Leslie, you can
Yes, Mr. Chairman, thank you. I believe you have my submission.
just hang on here. So we have your submission and you have a rebuttal and the assessor has 2 documents in rebuttal.
I just told him I don't need to go through them. It's just generally speaking to chronic vacancy versus an elevated flipping
And
vacancy.
we've heard that.
We don't need to go any further. I'm trying to see.
We understand that. Okay, Mr. Leslie, we have your brief.
Yes, so and while the assessor commented on the lower class D, what we do have and what and it started before COVID of March of 20, is we have a functionally obsolete building located on a major thoroughfare across the street from which was formerly the St. Regis Hotel. In the assessor's brief, he confirmed that the property was purchased in January of 2000 for $360,000. $75,000. On page 2 of my submission, I give a history where the subject property has been a matter before the Board of Revision.
Mr. Leslie, I have to stop you there.
Okay.
We do not compare assessments. I made that,
I'm not trying to compare assessments. I'm just stating a fact that this matter has come before the board every reference date. I'm not looking,
this is a trial de novo. It's a brand new trial.
and I appreciate that.
Because quite frankly, we weren't necessarily party to any of these hearings.
And I appreciate that as well. It's
No,
just the fact that this is a property that at one time had a large bank-like space, or still does bank-like space on the main floor, has a mezzanine that was formerly occupied by Public Utility Board tribunals, has 2, 3, 4, and 5, which only works if it's leased on a full floor, because each floor includes approximately 1,000 square feet of elevator space, washroom space, and hallway space. So as I pointed out, and it was included in the assessor's brief, floors 4 and 5 left at the end of 18, prior to COVID. Okay. Now, what happened during COVID was that True North Square came online, and True North Square took all the Class A tenants from Portage and Main. The tenants that were in Class B, C, and D then moved up in the chain. And as at this particular reference date, this particular building was over 60% vacant, with little or no chance of being occupied. The taxpayer spent from the start of COVID to the reference date dealing with security issues with this particular building. At one point,
So how does that relate to market value?
it relates to market value because they can't lease the building. This is a functionally obsolete building that requires a significant capital investment in order to change its use. As the assessor pointed out, it is offered for lease at considerably more than what it's renting. I believe I pointed out that the common taxes are running at $7 to $8 a square foot, and are not going to decrease because the building is 70 years old. And the only way it works is if a tenant rents the whole floor, but those tenants are now moving into Class C, B, and A buildings, or they're moving out of downtown because of the security issues. The taxpayer, the owner of the property, thought it was difficult when the St. Regis was across the street. City Venture, I believe, bought that property, but Glenn leased it back to the operator on the condition that they would lose their liquor license and lose their VLTs in order to improve the area. That didn't happen either. The St. Regis is gone now.
Yeah, and that's not part of this hearing anyway.
No, I understand
Like,
that,
let's
but
hope-
we're trying to get at the fundamental issue, which is what a willing buyer would pay a willing seller for a property that can. And on page 5, There is the adjusted NOI as reported by the taxpayer in the applicable period. 2020, 33,571.53, not 335,000, 33,000. And it's 21, 20,000.
So you have the income work up here. What is your evidence of value? The final, what do you consider, like, we have to move on this? Is this your income workup on page 5 then?
Yes. That is my evidence of value. I'm suggesting the value is not more than $1.5 million. It has been vacant, more than 50% vacant since the end of 2018. It justifies, I believe the department says that a chronic vacancy, the maximum rate they'll use is 25%.
Well, I think the assessor spoke to that.
Well, he wasn't suggesting that there was chronic vacancy.
Well, that was his testimony.
Right. But I'm saying that since the end of 2018, you've had more than 50% vacancy, and now it's more than 60% vacancy. The main floor is occupied, a portion of the main floor is occupied by the owner. And only occupied by the owner because they own it. They don't use the whole space. It is bank-like space. There's nobody on the mezzanine. There's nobody on 4 and 5. They've got 300 square feet somewhere in the middle of the building. There's no parking. There's no stopping on Smith Street. That's my submission.
Thank you.
Quick question, just a few quick questions. In brief, you're well versed in vacancy, dealt with this property for a long time. Before the period of vacancy started in 18 increasing, was it not 90 or so percent for a number of years back of occupancy?
Yes.
10% vacancy.
Yes, but that was before True North built.
Right.
Added how many square feet to the marketplace?
The issue is market adjustments and trickle down effect, that your opinion is that, but not any actual barrier to market from occupying the building. It's proven by the occupancy.
The barrier is there is no tenants available.
Okay. Do you have any market comparables for the building? For the Class B?
I don't think there is a comparable.
Can I ask why they're an independent leasing agent with list for $12.50, inclusive of all the things you spoke to, costs, CAM tax?
It's a negotiating. They're gonna ask for whatever they think the marketplace bears and take whatever they can get.
So would not about a $3 lesser rent than what they're asking for not be reasonable. That's about a 23% reduction in what they're asking for.
If you ask for $950, then the marketplace will want $650.
Right up, those are all the questions.
Thank you. Carrie, any questions?
I have no questions.
Richard?
I have none. Thanks.
And I have no questions, so that concludes the Smith Street. Do you want to take a 5-minute recess?
No, we're okay. Continue.
Oh, we're okay?
Unless you want to recess.
Oh, Carrie.
Recess?
Recess.
Okay, we are live.
Thank you very much. We'll reconvene the hearing this afternoon. And the next property on the docket is 80 Salter Street. And I understand there's a preliminary issue in that, Mr. Badger, your brief was filed late.
Well, I filed it on time, but the document wasn't, it was missing the pages for some reason. So I filed the balance of it, just recently, yes.
Because the only document the board has in front of us right now is a picture of the building.
Yeah, I sent about 30 minutes ago, the full document,
Oh, today?
yes. Is it, I'm sorry, I sent it to the, is it Roger or Rojan?
Spelling, yes.
Pardon me?
Yes, I have your brief.
Okay, and I apologize for that, yeah.
Would you like to swear in the applicant?
Mr. Applicant, please state your full name
Jeffrey Badger,
and you affirm the evidence you're about to present is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth.
I do.
Thank you.
Thank you. While the board has agreed to accept the evidence of your brief, it was filed late for the record, and we'll place the appropriate weight on it. So, Jeremy, you can proceed with.
Just so we're clear, I never got anything but this. Mr. Badger gave me a quick call, but I never received anything, and I wasn't able to return his call to bed with about 10 or so this morning. So this is going to be allowed in, but you put your appropriate weight on it.
And be brief.
All right.
I just gotta turn off the other computer. Sorry. Apologize for that.
Roll number is 140018545080 Salter. The 2023 assessment is for 1,129,000. The building was built in 1989. It's approximately 6,300 square feet or so gross floor area. Leasable area is approximately 200 square feet. If you look on page 7, it is a bit of a newer building, has ample parking. Look on page 9, indicating that it's owner occupied. There's no leaseable tenants, obviously. When you look to the marketplace on the next page, on page 9 and 10, we see that we have approximately 89 comparables throughout the city, different similar areas, high traffic flow areas. We see that for that, we have nearly 300,000 square feet of inventory. And the average weight is $15.85. The weighted average is $16.01. Median is about 15, and your min-max range is between 10 and $24.50. So overall, about $16 marketplace for a average building. This is a bit more new. If you look at our income stream on page 3, we have for the leasable area just over 1650 and 1644. So on average, it's about 1647 applied. So just over the weighted median or the weighted average and above the median. That produces a potential rent of $101,697. Our standard parameters do apply. Vacancy at 6%, which produces effective gross income of $95,595. Non-recoverable expenses at 3%. Shortfall at $8 produces a net operating income of $89,763, capped at approximately 6.95%, gives us our value of $1,129,000. I think that's fair. I think it's reasonable. It's within market for the average. The building's a little bit newer, ample parking. I think it should be about where we have the model. So for that, some open questions.
Thank you very much. Mr. Badger, any questions?
Yeah, my first question. Have you had a chance to review the file in regards to the previous assessment department certification certs on reducing the value?
I have to stop you right there. This board does not consider previous decisions. And I said that in my preamble.
Okay. My next question was on the, is there a tendency for rental rates to drop in comparison to the size of the space? The larger the space, the lower the rental rate?
As far as economies of scale,
Yes.
it's on the use of the building. A larger building may have greater utility to a tenant, so you get more. It all depends on the nature of the building. Sometimes there's economies of scale. It all depends on what the marketplace is at that moment in time. So there are factors. It's not a yes or no answer.
Okay. I was just curious, what's the reasoning behind the two buildings, the two ID numbers? Is that just because it sits on two titles?
No, we just have two CRUs in there. As far as there only being one CRU, I'm not sure in respect to the property. So
So if there's one at 6,100 square feet, that doesn't make a difference in the rate?
no, not that difference of area. It's not like it's a 300 or a 700 or whatever square foot CRU versus a 17,000 or 18,000 square foot CRU. The difference between 3,000 or 6,000 would be nominal.
The 6% vacancy factor. I noticed that in regards to your capitalization rates, you researched the documentation from Colliers. You seem to recognize Colliers as being an expert in the marketplace. Have you taken a look at the vacancy rates that they've put out for office buildings in this area?
As far as their information,
Their information in terms of vacancy rates.
let me finish. This is simply a reflection of what the market is on page 5 from outside sources. As far as for this particular property, 1 story, 6,000 square foot. I don't think Colliers actually has vacancy for this type of property. If you look at there, they have an A and a B. So for information I've looked through, I don't think they do actually track this. The C's and D's or the OFS is the miscellaneous. I don't think they actually have a category reported for that. If there is, I'm unaware of it.
So are you accredited assessor?
Yeah, registered as a AOM, yeah.
In regards to the treatment of, you did receive my rebuttal evidence on comparables, the treatment of comparables?
Nope,
Rebuttal gets addressed after his main presentation.
I haven't received anything yet.
You know, it's the board, did they distribute that?
We haven't received it yet until you make your presentation.
No, I filed that the day after receiving your presentation. I filed a 2-page document on the treatment of comparables. I filed it with the board. It was
Yes,
accepted.
Mr. Badger, rebuttal evidence gets addressed after the main briefs have been discussed and questioned.
Okay. I was looking at your 89 comparables. How many of them are in the north end?
Don't believe any. This building where it's located, there is very few similar buildings in that location. At least that reference, that at least up within a short period of the reference statement.
So there's no comparables located in the neighborhood.
What I indicated that this is a newer build for the area. What I indicated that the market comparables that are such as the locations that they're in. If there was ample evidence that I could bring in, I would be bringing that in as well, if as long as it leased up within a few years of the reference date, so.
So all these buildings here are considered new builds?
Pardon me?
Or all these 89 comparables are all new builds?
They're all, no, they're not newer builds, but they're not, they're all in within 15, 20 years or so of where the subject property is. They're not like, if you're trying to split hairs to come to the exact same age as the building for this location, you're not gonna find anything to bring in. The market as far as OFS one-story buildings is what it is, and it's on my last 2 pages, so. If you have any other evidence, that'd be your evidence.
The so a building that's 33 years old is considered a new build?
It is a newer building for the area. It is not a 1960 style building. It is in the midnight of about 1990 build. So 30 years is not terribly old.
Okay, so and I look at the way you came up with your average rents. There's not one comparable in the north end here. But you cover every other neighborhood. Are you saying in the majority of them are in the south of downtown, in the south end of the city? There's no adjustment for location?
What I'm saying is, if I could access, better way of looking at it, when I run my query, if there would be rents in the area, I'd be including them in as well. I'd be referencing them. But leading up to the reference date, within a few years of the reference date, there were none. I cannot manufacture or create market evidence that's not there. And part of that is because although it is a 30-year-old building, it is newer for the area. You don't have a lot of redevelopment in this area where you would have that. So there's a limited amount of stock is what I'm saying for this particular kind of property, given the location in that area.
But there should be a locational differential, should there not be?
Not unless you can define what it is. If I had it in place and there was showing a different rents, we would be adjusting for it. If there was a average, we would leave it. If it was higher, we would adjust for it. But in this case here, there's an absence of market. This is the best evidence that we have.
And so you're saying
I think he's answered your question.
well, I know he's answered. I'm just somewhat frustrated. That's all. Okay, I'll just pass on that one. And when I have to wait till after I present mine before I talk about the rebuttal.
That's correct. Any other questions of Jeremy?
You're comparing, just two more questions. Comparable 43 on McLeod. There's a comparable is located in an industrial area, similar to the subject property. Would you say that would be a good comparable?
Which comparable?
Your item, your comp number 43, 844 McLeod. It's in the inner city area. And it is located in the heart of or around an industrial park area of the Elmwood area. That would be an adjacent neighborhood.
It's not in downtown, I don't understand, it's showing an $11 rent for 1,000 square feet.
Yes.
I'm not hiding anything. I'm being fulsome with my review of what leased up for this type of property. So.
Well, I guess what I'm trying to ask you, it's in a first rung neighborhood. It's in an industrial neighborhood, and it's in the north side of Winnipeg. Would that be a reasonable comparable?
It's in because it's one of the comparables, but you shouldn't be looking at just a singular comparable. You should be looking at what the marketplace is. It is a low-lying Obviously, at $11 in the meeting, it's about 16, maybe average is about 16, or should be in the $16 range. So this is below. But
Your
it's just-
comparable number 62.
Sergeant, yeah. 1765 Sergeant.
That's it's a comparable that was used in the last go around for this particular property. So if that comparable was selected by the assessment department, would it be fair to say that it's a reasonable comparable?
I have it in the analysis. I'm not sure where you're getting at. Are you just looking to grab the 2 or 3 lower rents and saying it's what it should be at the southern property?
Oh, I took 765. That's the comparable that the assessment department choose as being a comparable site on the last assessment period.
Again, that's not relevant what happened the last assessment period.
Well, I'm just telling what comparables you made. That was a compare. I'm not asking you about the results of it or the rates of it. I'm just saying that was considered a comparable property to the subject property in the 2020 assessment appeal.
Again, it's not relevant.
Okay.
So that's it for your questioning.
That's it for my questions.
Okay, thank you, Terry.
I have no questions. Thank you.
Richard.
Just one clarification, when you were going through your page 3, I believe you said your cap rate was 6.95.
Yeah.
I show 7.9.
Oh, sorry, 7.9.
7.9.
If I misspoke, I
No,
apologize.
thank you. No further questions.
It happened. A lot of numbers.
No worries.
And I have no questions. So, Mr. Badger, you can make your presentation,
Okay.
but you'll have to give us a minute. Is it on there?
It's in.
Oh, it's in there. Jeremy, do you need a minute to go through it?
I can go through it if you go through it at the same time.
Oh, okay. And everybody's got it?
Yep.
Okay, Mr. Badger, you can proceed.
Okay, I guess you want me to be brief. Subject properties on Salter, just north of the Salt Rupchek Bridge, the corner of Salter and Stella. It's in the middle of the Dufferin Industrial Park District, or I guess it's on I should say the edge of the industrial district. It was built as I put down office / industrial. Industrial meaning that it has open ceilings in the building. The neighborhood is the Dufferin Industrial District. The building is 33 years old. I don't want to give you, did you say it's not relevant to talk about the past assessment value of the property? So I won't mention it. The property is owned by Seed Winnipeg Inc. It's a nonprofit organization that works in the inner city area there. The subject property was, I mentioned it's a slab on grade concrete block, steel web roof. So it's a very sort of industrial looking building. It does look nice from the exterior. When you're driving by, if you get up and walk around it, you'll notice that it's a combination of concrete block and acrylic stucco. There's been evidence of the building starting to show its age, in that the brick facade is starting to fall off. I showed you in exhibit 3 in the photos, which is on page 12. There's a crack with you'll see a large black crack there if you turn the page sideways along the building, where the brick facade is starting to pull away from the frame of the building. When I looked around at the windows, the sealants around the windows are all cracking. So what's happening is moisture is starting to get into the wall cavities. On page 11, I just want to point out there's the open ceiling that we're talking about. There's a mix of closed ceiling offices and open ceiling offices. because the building was originally designed as being 100% open, there's been issues with mechanical systems where they've had to add supplemental heat and cooling in different sections once they start to subdivide the space with closed ceilings. On the photos on page 11, the top, you'll see a box on the inline ductwork there. The reason I took a picture of that, it's not for artistic purposes. At the bottom of the page here, where you see the metal railing, because of the location in a high crime area and vandalism, they've had to put security grating in all the windows around the building there. I don't need to talk about the estimate of market value. We're all in agreement to use the income approach. On the income approach, we have to go through a process of ascertaining the gross annual income for the properties. You can work down to the net. In the question of market value, I provided as exhibit 5 on page 14. 5 comparable properties that I was able to find some information on. All of them with the exception of the Ellis Street one are within the subject marketplace or in that north end of the city. I included Ellis in there because it's a building of a similar age and similar type sort of industrial / office building there. 1750 Main Street, it's a medical office. You would normally think that the rent should be higher, but they weren't. The actual market there is $10 a square foot. It's further out in North Main, out by around Jefferson. I gave it a credit of 10%, minus 10% off of it, because the difference in the location factor of it being in the north part of North Main versus being right out of the core of the city. The assessor made notice about all his comparables being on high artery streets in terms of traffic. The subject property has the exposure, but because of the divided road there system there coming off the bridge, you're not going to see people pulling off there to use it as a retail outlet or a quick outlet like that. 981 Main Street is another property I checked out. I spoke to the broker there. Their rent was $12.50 a square foot. I gave it the same location adjustment. 34 Higgins is a building that's probably in the 60s. 65-year-old building. It's a modern building. You drive by, it's on Higgins. It's another major artery. The asking rent there is $9.25 a square foot. 1754 building, which is adjacent to the 1750 Main Street, again is $10.80 a square foot. I gave that one an adjustment of 10%. I didn't give a location advantage to Higgins because it's on a similar, just outside of the downtown core of Winnipeg, sort of a location. 1700 Ellis Street is in this industrial office park sort of area. Its rent was $14.50 a square feet, and that's the asking rent. But because of the location, I gave it a 20% differential. So in reviewing my comparables, I came up with the average without adjustment was $11.41. If I take into account the adjustments that I made, it works out to $10.16. In determining the income for the property for the evaluation, I used a rate of $11 per square foot across the board. In terms of the vacancy rate, this is a single tenant building. If you have a tenant that moves out, you're going to be out of rent for a period of time. So they're like this building being at 10%, it'd be like having the building empty for a year, once every 10 on the 10th year. I checked out the Collier's Winnipeg office market report for the assessment period here. The current vacancy rate citywide for offices is 12.9%. It's a little bit higher for Class C buildings. I'm suggesting that we should use a vacancy rate of 10%, not the 6%. In terms of the, I agree with the expense ratios that the assessor used. I don't have a problem with that. In regards to the capitalization rate of 7.9%, I adjusted upwards to 8%. I guess you're going to tell me, because I looked at the capitalization rate, which is a factor of what they deem to be the risk of the property is to an investor, risk of return. The prior 2.5 years ago, the rate that was used was in the about 8.3%. During COVID, the market has been relatively flat. I'm suggesting that capitalization rate here should be similar to what it was shown to be at the last cycle. So I'm suggesting that we bump the capitalization rate to 8% rather than 7.95%. Go back and take a look at the very last page. This is where I'm summarizing it. My evaluation model is similar to the way the assessor has done his presentation there. Running through, you'll see there I used $11 per square foot. That gives you a gross income of $67,925 versus the $101,000 that the assessment department is using. In terms of the vacancy factor, you'll see they use 6, I use 10%. I used for the operating expenses and non-recoverable is the same factors. Comes up with my net income then is $54,359. I cap it, and my cap rate's 0.05% higher than the assessors. It came out indicating a capitalized value of just under $680,000. So my recommendation is that the property should have an assessed value of $680,000. I would suggest that would be, in keeping in past evaluations, that would keep it in a neutral position, which the market has been flat for office buildings over the last 2.5 years. Did I talk about my rebuttal evidence right now?
No, Jeremy has the opportunity to ask questions.
First, obviously on record, it's the first time seeing this, and you put as much weight to it as you feel fit as far as the panel. But moving to your pages, start at page 11. You were on site, correct?
Yes.
Pictures. So we see a picture of the ceiling. I see a picture of the exterior on page 11. On page 12, I see a picture of the masonry. 3 pictures only. How come you do not bring in actual pictures of the building itself, the interior?
There's a picture of the interior that's showing the ceiling.
Pardon me?
There is a picture of the interior.
No, I meant, why didn't you go through the building and take normal pictures of the spaces that are tenanted? Cubicle, the training rooms, the staff room, the library, the lounge, the individual cubicle, the individual offices. On page 9 gives you a good indication. You could have took multiple pictures there to show what was actually in the building.
But these are the only pictures he's presenting.
Yeah.
I was just, one thing I did, if you want me to, I did clarify that only some of it's a mixture of closed ceilings and open ceilings. On my page 9, the ones with the solid black walls are the offices that have a closed.
That line of questioning on page 9 is a site map or a building,
Floor plan.
a building map. Does what the actual building offer? Does it not offer a high functional use utility? Training rooms, staffing rooms, libraries, reception areas, sitting areas, kitchenettes, numerous spaces for offices to carry out.
I think we can all see this.
I had indicated that yes, the building you can lay it out, but mechanical systems are deficient to operate it as a high productive office building in that it doesn't got the individual controls. For
So-
offices, that's the problem, because it was designed with the controls to be an open ceiling basis.
So
So it's a hodgepodge of mechanical systems.
my point is, it seems like the site gives high utility. So would that not lead to an average, at least average rental rate within the marketplace, given its greater utility to? potential tenant?
Average, that, I guess that leads to my rebuttal. I would say, yes, to the marketplace being the neighborhood marketplace.
Next question, page 13, you have 5 comparables and only 5.
Yes,
You indicated it, you had some issues with going citywide because that's what the stock of properties are. Why are you now including 1700 Ellis, which is significantly outside of the subject property's location? And it's not appropriate for the assessor to simply canvass the city to see what the market is.
I use that one because that's the one that the assessment department used for this property going back last cycle. So I thought for interest sake, I'd put it back in.
Next, follow-up questions to these properties. When are the actual start dates for the leases?
I didn't determine the start dates.
So you don't know if it's old rent, current rent?
I know they're current. I gave you the indication of the dates there. I'm
Tell the
trying to get them
question.
all to 2021. I did indicate which ones are actual and which ones are asking rents.
So they're not all actual
That's the
rents? Sorry, say that again? They're not all actual rents?
You see down there, the lease rate was the lease rate per square foot. I say ACT, that's actual rents. Like for 1750, for 1981 Main Street, that was an asking rent.
So that's not an
The
actual
make
rent.
it under that.
So that's not an actual rent then. So you have, sorry, so 1, 2, 3 of your comparables aren't actual contractual rents, they're just asking rents.
Yes. But
So you only have 2 comparables then, 34 Higgins and 1750 Main. Or sorry, 1754 Main and 1750 Main. The rest of them are just asking rents.
That's correct, yes.
Okay, that's all the questions.
Thank you. Carrie, any questions?
I have no question.
And Richard?
I have none.
And I have no questions. Jeremy, do you have rebuttal?
No, I don't like.
Okay, Mr. Badger, you'll have to give us a second if the rebuttal's here.
No, I'm looking at it right now. Okay, it's in there now.
Did you know?
Yeah, it's in there.
There it is.
And I apologize for that one page being upside down.
I think I fixed it on yours. I'll be right there. Oh, no, I
Just the second page.
It's the second page.
if you guys close, I can fix it.
Okay, just give us a minute.
I'm only gonna be talking about on the first printed page, just the last paragraph. And the last 3 or 4 sentences on the other side. On the next page, at the top.
Oh, someone has it open.
Richard, you have to get out of it.
Close your document. Finish it.
It's upside down.
Yeah, it's just.
I won't let me see it. Hold on, I'll just. Okay, it's the second rebuttal in there.
Second rebuttal?
Yes, it's revised.
Okay.
I'll go get that.
Richard, you got it?
I'm in. Let's see if it's upside down. There we go.
We have to wait for her to come back. Okay, Mr. Badger, you can proceed with your rebuttal.
Okay. Just a section from the property assessment evaluation second edition for international associations of assessing officers. It's basically just a discussion, outline of how to assess properties. On page 206, which is the second page of my rebuttal document, at the bottom, it talks about comparisons along leases and comparing one rental property with another. The following factors should be considered: 1, the effective date of the lease; 2, the location of the lease; 3, the physical characteristics; 4 is the terms of the lease. It's just saying that these factors are should be analyzed thoroughly, comparatively with the rental property to be determined. Because the income approach is very dependent on the income that you're using, that there should be caution in using this. I submitted this just on the basis that I'm saying that a broad citywide collection of comparables is will lead to well, in this particular case, because we're talking about a building within a sub-market that is not similar to any of the units at the south end of the city or even to the far north of the city. It's in an older area, it's in an industrial area that it's over the use of the comparables on the broad basis for the whole city is overstating the true value of what you can get in terms of the rental income for the property. That's my rebuttal evidence.
Okay, thank you, Jeremy.
1 minute summary, that's all I need.
No questions on the
No
rebuttal?
questions, just a 1 minute summary.
Carrie?
No questions, thank you.
Richard?
No questions.
And I have no questions, so Jeremy, if you want to.
Sure. Again, this was late, but I'll leave it at the board to go what way it will. On page 13, the appellant indicates 3 of the 5 are asking rents and not actual rents. The remaining 2 are right next door to each other, 1750 and 1754 Main. I asked when was the rents started, what was the lease? He did not know. If you look at his rebuttal, point 1, literally point 1 is the effective date of the lease. He doesn't know. Essentially, the appellant has no information to market to present to the penalty. That's my summary. I think our valuation can see more appropriate because I can see the building, the units of the building, the utility was just shown on the site map, even though there's no pictures. So,
Okay, thank you. Mr. Badger, any need for a summary?
I think the most important thing, I think, in terms of using the verbal is location and the type of building and the neighborhood that it's in. We're not far off on capitalization rates or vacancy rates. The biggest difference here is the rental rate. There was an indication that the assessor said that it's hard to find other comparables in this marketplace. I am involved in inner city redevelopments. I was involved in the merchants, the rehab of the merchants. I shouldn't say the rehab, is actually a rehab of the old Merchants Hotel plus a brand new building beside it. I work with an agency that actually rents space in that building there. I did not use that as the comparable, but that was built in 2017. It came on. And that rent was $9 a square foot over on Selkirk Avenue. The reason I did not include it because it was an old lease in this time here. But there are buildings in the neighborhood that you could pull, especially if you have access to it.
Well, this is not a summation. This is bringing in new evidence.
Okay, so that's my summation.
Okay, thank you. And that concludes JD Salker. And we will take a 5-minute recess.
Okay, thanks, guys. Hope to hear from you soon.
Yep, thank you.
We are live.
Thank you very much. Good afternoon, everyone again.
Good afternoon. I don't seem to, how do I start my camera? It says you have stopped it from that side.
Yes, that's correct.
Okay, so Shall I remain on audio only then?
Sorry, my chairperson is just gonna make a statement. I'm just bringing everyone into the meeting.
Good afternoon, everyone again. I'm just going to make a statement. We've heard 3 of the items scheduled today on this hearing. And due to personal reasons, we've had to adjourn your properties to another date. So you will be getting a new letter from the Board of Revision indicating the date and time of the hearing. And I apologize for that, but it was unforeseen circumstances. So we're now adjourned. Thank you very much.